Hey guys, I'm going to do something different with this video. For those of you who are seeing this who aren't part of my channel, this is something different that I normally do. I normally do use tarot to help guide me, tarot and channeling to help guide me to help people and whatever it is it wants me to do basically. But you could check that out on the side, and I do other random videos on different topics. But we have been wanting to do this for a little while with helping people from a different perspective of masculine and feminine and masculine versus feminine. I'm sorry, I'm like masculine versus feminine. Feminine and masculine. And it kind of fell into our hands one time with a couple friend of ours that, you know, we helped them with something and we realized like, wow, we were pretty good at it and we liked it. So this is where we're going and we're trying it out, hopefully for it to go more to help people and add in addition to my and our guidance, help, coaching, and all of that with relationships or life or whatever, or just merely for, as I always try to do, show people a difference in perspective. So it doesn't mean that mine or his is going to be right. This is just to show you a difference or a similarity or just overall general different perspective. It's definitely not a male against female thing. So anything, if there's any males or females in the comments watching, please don't make this where we're going against each other. You know, there's a way to do this civilized and all of that if anybody even does comment. But this is just a working together because I feel like we miss out on so much in life when we don't see other people's perspectives. And it sucks when you go a lot of years thinking you know something or missing out on all the opportunities just because you didn't see something from another perspective. So this is my and our way of bringing this to hopefully show other perspectives. This is my husband, Mike. How you doing? Today we're going to talk about, we're hoping to eventually bring this live, but we're going to do this first couple times and see how it goes. So like, share, comment, subscribe, tell us what you guys think. Absolutely like it. If it helps you at all, also maybe donate, and it helps with our cause and to help with this channel. My PayPal and email and all my other services as of right now are in the description box below of this video, and it's constantly expanding. We're probably going to expand with these services as well. So if you need any of that information, the information is below, but we do plan on going live with this pretty soon. Today's video is going to basically be about our different perspectives on the games that we play as feminine versus masculine. So I don't know if you want to go first. I think I wrapped up everything. Was that pretty much everything?
I'll go ahead and go first.
Okay.
The first thing I want to talk about is the tests that both men and women play on each other. Certain things like, let's see here, just going after a reaction, just trying to gauge somebody's reaction, such as, what's an easy one? Easy one is being upset when a man doesn't hold the door for you. Simple thing.
Or telling a woman or somebody no.
Yeah, or telling somebody no. That honestly, that's a test that everybody should do, and they should do it early in a relationship so you can gauge how somebody reacts to that, man or woman. If you're dealing with somebody that has any kind of possible personality issues or something, that's going to be your biggest thing that's going to bring that out. And make sure it's something small. Something like... No,
yeah, you don't want to do it to something like serious. No. You want to like just gauge them.
Make sure it's something like say, if Candice wanted to go out and watch a romantic movie. And let's say I'm not into romantic movies. There's no obligation for me to be, yes, let's go watch a romantic movie. In fact, the sooner I say no to that, something small like that, the better off things are, because then at that point I can see if Candice is vindictive, or you can see as a woman if I'm vindictive by saying no to something like that. Something small. No, I don't want to go watch the game with you. No, I don't want to go watch a romantic movie with you. No, I don't want to do something small.
Okay, I've got to clarify though, because this sounds a little bit like, you know, people are like, And it's about the balance of it.
Yes.
So, I mean, and he's not normal. It's not like he's like that, but it's about gauging the little things or seeing about compromising. Like maybe say you're on a first date and a woman is like, I really want coconut shrimp, you know? And you're like, well, let me see how she does. Like, if you're really like, I've had it and I need to see what women are like because I don't have time to waste anymore, then you might do something little like, you know, normally you would appease her and help, but be like, let's see how good she is at compromising. What type of woman is she? And say, well, I don't know. Just last time I had that, it really didn't sit right with me. I'm down with getting shrimp, but can we compromise and get something else? Maybe like shrimp on a Barbie or breaded shrimp, or is there something else we can do? And see her reaction to it.
Oh,
it's something like that is what he's saying. He's not just saying to be like, nope, screw you.
No, not at all.
Not like that.
You don't want to end a relationship before it's even started. And something like that where you're just straight up walled off, no. That's going to end a relationship before it's even started if you go too hard on it. So
yeah. Or maybe even like if you don't want to do a romantic comedy or something, you want to see how she is and be like, you know,
suggest something else.
You know, suggest something else, or be like, well, you know, I may do that with you one time. Can we save that for another time and do something that we're both kind of into it now? So Absolutely. You're showing her, yes, I'm open to being there for you too. However, not right now, and just see, you know,
that
what
actually
she does.
That's a much better idea than just saying no. It honestly is. I don't care.
That's what I'm like.
It is. It's a much better idea than just saying no. Because if you're with somebody that won't compromise...
Yeah, because then you come across, too, looking like you won't compromise. Yeah, you know what I mean?
What
so you
kind of relationship is that going to be? If you're in the first couple of dates and neither person wants to compromise, then you already have the answer on how that relationship's going to go.
So we'll go on the one thing real quick, because this was your first. But so that's one of them. You know, a lot of tests people do or should do, I think that's more they should do, is kind of test people and tell them no a little bit and just see their reaction, because that'll really help you gauge whether somebody is narcissist or they have really strong narcissistic characteristics too, on how well they gauge with, maybe in the beginning they'll be a little bit more flexible, some of them during the love bombing stage though, so you got to be careful, but I think we should hit back on that.
The thing is with that, it's not necessarily to look for that immediate response, because if somebody does have narcissistic tendencies, that response will be delayed just a little bit.
Right.
So what you're looking for is within the next, I don't know, couple weeks or so, if they come at you with a blow up over something that's simple, that's unimportant, kind of like, you don't want to get to a blow up, but if something, when you say no or compromise or whatnot, but if it gets to that point where very soon after you have a blow up, that's something to look at. That's a huge red flag.
Or they just ghost you and then you just bypassed a bullet.
Yeah, that's another thing. If somebody ghosts you, men, women, whatever, if somebody doesn't respond to your text when you text them and you're not in a super deep relationship, then you need to let that go. That's a respect thing.
I think that's a good topic. I think we should save that, because that's a huge topic. Yeah. I think we should save that for another video.
We can save that for
another. And we're on 8 minutes. So
next is
yours, and then we'll flip flop and do that one.
Do you want to go to the next one, or?
I mean, that's a big one. Withholding sex.
Withholding sex. You obviously want to wait till you know you're going to have a relationship with somebody before you just jump in the sack.
Yeah.
That's an obvious thing. Once you have a relationship together, that is a partnership. That is not, you can't go at that as one person just holds the keys to sex. Because if that happens, then do
you feel women do that a lot? Do you think that they withhold sex?
I think both do sometimes. I think men and women both do. And it may not even be a conscious thing you're doing, but when you start to notice that your partner is starting to vocalize some opinions, which you can take it however you want, most people don't approach that the right way. When they try to correct the issue, it turns into an argument, and there's nothing that's going to dry up a sex life faster than an argument.
Yeah, I think that's a thin line though, because where is the line drawn, you know, between somebody who is just truly, you know, they're not in the mood and they have the right to that as far as
they do, absolutely,
their own body, or, you know, I don't know, somebody deserving it or not, or just sometimes you're just not in the mood, or if somebody upsets you. Because I think a lot of that, sometimes people legit do use that as a manipulative tactic. And then sometimes people, what I realized in my journey is that sometimes just people just don't feel like doing it for whatever reason. And sometimes it may come after a fight or someone not getting their way or something like that, and they don't want to have sex. And, you know, I know a lot of times I used to think it actually came across as withholding or whatever, but sometimes it's just that person may subconsciously not even know what they're doing. You know, they're just upset and they're just like, they need a minute to themselves, and they're like, no, I don't really feel like being like that intimate and close with you, because they honestly feel a little hurt, wounded, or butthurt, as you would say. And I don't know. I'm not sure. Like, sometimes it could be still them withholding, and I think sometimes they know and sometimes they don't know, men and women. I definitely do think some people dangle it as a carrot in front of people.
So do I.
Sometimes. But I think also women sometimes, you know, a lot of men view women as also withholding sex, but also a woman needs to realize too that, you know, sex or somebody entering inside of her, you know, not to get too graphic, but, you know, that's a big deal for a woman. That's, you know, somebody, you know, that's your soul, that's your essence, that's who you are, that is a vulnerable state. And what we as women need to realize nowadays, that as people are coming more into the divine feminine or the empress level, is am I really feeling this? Am I resonating with this? Am I doing this out of fear, or because I feel someone will leave, or I'm doing it to get them not to leave? Or am I doing this because I really want to? How will I feel about it later? Does this person deserve me? And are they going to bring me good energy? Because you are taking in somebody else's energy and all of their karma and baggage along with them.
Yep.
So there is that also kind of from the feminine side. I don't know. I seriously doubt a lot of men tend to think that way. Why would a man withhold sex? Why would they do that? Do you think?
The only reason I can think is literally to try to control the woman. Is the only reason I can, other than maybe a medical issue or something to that effect. I mean, a big piece that goes into that is you can't use you statements in those kinds of situations. You have to use I statements, such as, I get turned off when, or I turn myself off when, I turn myself on when, things like that. If you go at it with you statements where you're accusing, you're coming at it with an accusatory tone, you're not gonna gain any ground. You're just gonna lose.
You're also coming at somebody like it's their responsibility to fill your need in this world.
Absolutely. Now, that being said, both sides, male or female, if you're with somebody you're not truly attracted to, you need to review that very deeply. Release that person. If you're really not attracted to them and all you're doing is making them miserable because you're not able to fulfill a portion of life that they want.
Financially support yourself.
Yeah. If that's what you're holding on to and you're using it as a manipulative tactic, then either it's not going to end well. That's the easiest way to put it. It's not going to end well. Somebody's going to cheat. Somebody's going to not be fulfilled. And it's just the way it is.
Yeah. There's a whole lot of, blocks and fears and all that to break through for that. So we'll do more videos on that too, or if you need help with it, because we understand sometimes people stay in those situations, sometimes consciously and sometimes subconsciously, and it annoys them even, and they don't know why they wish they could break out of it. And sometimes it's not as easy. I mean, I know it sucks, like from a male, like say a female was doing that to a male, it would suck from a male perspective, although males do it too. There's also more underneath that. Like I understand both sides. So if you're somebody who does need help with that, and there's things about it that you can't find a way to break out of it, or that's fear basically. If you're going to be with anybody that you're not truly into or attracted to, and they don't make you feel good, or they hurt you, or you just don't want to be there, you either have blocks that are keeping you there that you need to work through, and illusions from probably your childhood, or you've got something going on with your perception that you need to work through, that it could be that person, or it could literally just be the way you're looking at it.
Yep.
So I'll go on to one of mine that, you know, I feel like is something that is more along like what we were saying with it, the games we play. And I've realized over the years that I don't think a lot of guys, some do, but I don't think a lot of guys really do this as hurtfully or intentionally to be hurtful as I originally thought. But a lot of guys, when they come to where they are pretty much done with their relationship, they start becoming like, I don't really want to cause for like monetary reasons, but they start becoming...
They start playing not nice in the relationship.
They're like mean to you, or they'll play games, or they'll do things that the women don't understand, or, you know, whatever. And it's usually because the girl's like, but why stay? And on one hand, the guys are like, God, this girl just won't let go, and they're playing on my heartstrings. So they look at it like they feel guilty for doing it. So part of them is almost like, let me get her to let go. So they bypass the guilt or feeling responsible from that. Meanwhile, what they don't realize is that it actually really messes with girls and really messes up their heads. And I get it, it's on the girl's responsibility too, but it really messes them up. And sometimes they never come out of that, or it takes them a while and a lot of hard stuff to come out of that mentality and those wounds that were created in that time. Because yes, the girl was fearful too, you know, she's like, you know, stay. And instead of the guy being the one to initially have enough of the courage to be like, no, I'm done. And just, even if she puts on like he's a bad guy or whatever, even if you do bad things to her, like say a lot of guys will have done bad things to a girl or not nice, and then they'll not want to be with them, and then they feel bad, like, oh God, I did all this, now I'm breaking up with her, so maybe it'll help her, like I'll try it out once more, and then if not, worst case scenario, she'll break up with me, and then I bypass a lot of the responsibility of it. I think also a lot of guys subconsciously do it too, because a little bit of it feeds their ego. So I do think there's that as well, as far as, you know, the girls like wanting to stay, and the whole fight and push-pull dynamic. There's more there going on, I think, than they really see. But just them doing that, and I realized later throughout my life, it was to get the girl to go. Even though part of them somewhat doesn't even want them to, because that might be something they have to face that they don't. Like I said, it does feed part of their ego to have them stay in the push-pull dynamic. But for the most part, they're telling themselves it's actually to get you to be the one to decide to go, so that they don't have to kind of carry that burden, if you will. And I had an opportunity later in life, recently actually, not long ago, where I had the opportunity where I was in a room with like some women and a lot of guys, and we were actually having this discussion back and forth, and I got to ask them about this. This was one of the things I brought up since we were having this type of discussion. Why do guys do this? What is the mentality of this? You know, and they were just saying that, you know, it becomes too hard on them. They feel bad, and they're hoping that the woman will just do it, and it saves them the burden or the responsibility of it. And so then I asked, well, you know, do you feel bad about that? Like, do you later feel bad and want to hold on to it, or, you know, anything like that? And most of them actually said no. Like, they said because it's too painful, they just let it go. Like, they're just, you know, and I think actually they do hold on to more of it than they say, because I could see it in their face when they were saying it, which I'll ask you that in a second. But that was my experience with it. What would you say about that?
From the guy's perspective, absolutely. Guys are not the best at expressing their emotions. And there are some guys, there's two ways that happens. Either one, the guy basically doesn't care at all, and whether
he wants his cake and to eat it too.
Yeah, whether you're there or not doesn't matter to him, so he's not going to end it.
Yeah.
And then there's the guy that's just emotional enough to where he can't handle that breakup, initiating it himself. So he goes to a route that puts that burden on you. And that gentleman, that is something that needs to change. That is a responsibility on you. That is also a responsibility on women. You guys need to see those when they're happening. And you also, that comes down to it. Every man, well, almost every man was raised by a woman.
Yeah, if a guy tells you they don't want to be with you,
yeah,
believe them.
Believe it.
If they tell you they're an a-hole,
believe them.
Believe them.
Because people will tell you those kinds of things. When a woman tells you she's crazy, believe it. Because she will be honest with you. I've seen women, I've talked to women that will straight out say, I need a man to keep me in check. What that means to me is you're an emotional basket case and you need somebody that's going to regulate your emotions for you. I'm not your dad. I'm not going to do it. And that's honestly the way most men will approach that. I'm not.
Unless they're manipulative.
Unless they're manipulative. Unless they want to control you, because that's what you're asking them to do by doing that. Do you want to be controlled? At the end of the day.
And most of those guys, let's face it, like, they probably need to be controlled too.
Oh, absolutely.
It's usually a dance.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's always a dance, but it's especially a dance in one of those situations.
But when you can get close to that equal footing to where you don't have to worry about that kind of stuff, it's great. It's awesome. Yeah. Now, back on topic, more on topic to where we were.
I actually want to do a video on that, like
Absolutely.
when somebody tells you something.
Back on topic, more to the point. When a man or woman is playing that type of game where they want you to break up with them, as soon as you start to realize that, if you're not happy, if you're not...
Doesn't even matter if you're happy.
If you're not happy in a relationship, you need to sit down and have an adult conversation. And honestly, you should only have a couple adult conversations on any one topic. Yeah. If over time somebody can't move forward on after an adult conversation, you need to assume that person is not going to change and decide, is that a relationship you want to keep or not? Mm-hmm. That's another thing I wanted to talk about. This wraps into mixed signals.
Yeah, actually, well, yours could probably play in it, because something you were saying actually plays into one of my points. So you could actually go ahead with that, because that'll still play into the next one, the mixed signal.
Mixed signals, there aren't any. A mixed signal is a signal. If somebody's giving you a back and forth, pull and push type signal, what they're saying is they're not ready for you to be main stage.
Well, it also means they don't know what they want. Like,
exactly.
That's my view on it, that I did a video on that before, where it's, you know, if somebody's doing one thing and they're doing another, like, say if you're with a guy who he's like, no, I want to be with you, I want to be blah, 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 but yet he lies to you, he cheats on you and all this other stuff, they don't really know what they want. But if you've been staying there for a long time with them, going through all that and just talking it out, talking, wah, 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 and going and yelling and eventually nagging and complaining and, you know, being and all that stuff, newsflash, you don't know what you want either.
Yep.
Because if you knew what you wanted and that was not resonating with you, you would have been gone. Regardless, you would, even if you had to focus your blocks, whatever, which brings me to one of my points of, you know, it's kind of an off topic and I'll go on this, but saying when a woman is talking, they're being, nagging or whatever, which before I go truly into this, I'd like to say, women or men, if you've been with somebody for a long time and you are just going, and it's not helping, just stop.
Yep.
Like, don't waste your energy. Find some other way to expend your energy, like a more productive way, and either change something within yourself or get out of that situation and stop building resentment that they're not the one changing, because at that point, they're not the only one who needs to.
Yep.
But on this, now we'll go into this where we go back and forth unless you have something to say on that.
Well, I do want to say something real quick on that. If you're just going nagging, you have to understand at some point, if the person hasn't changed...
They're not even listening to you anyways.
No, not at all. At some point, no matter what somebody says, go off their actions. Obviously, give them a chance, unless it's something that's just a straight deal breaker, like you see somebody out there kicking a puppy, you're not going to want to date them too much, hopefully. But if it's not an outright deal breaker for you, obviously give somebody a couple of chances, a handful of chances. But if 10 years down the line, somebody's still setting their bowl in the sink without rinsing it out, guess what? Newsflash. They're probably not going to stop setting their bowl in the sink without rinsing it out. No matter how much you nag, no matter how much you yell, no matter how much you do whatever. You're just not going to change it.
Yeah. And then you need to decide whether or not you need to...
Is that a deal breaker?
Beat them up. No, I'm just
if they like that kind of thing.
You need to either, if it's that whatever to you where it's unbalancing your energy, then you need to decide, like, they're not respecting you and you do something else. Or, you know, I guess you just deal with it. I don't know. Or just at least don't nag about it. Like, even if you have to constantly, like, remind them and be like, hey, before the end of the night tonight, can you please get this? Like, that's actually, like, I'll be honest, me and him that's kind of why I was, like, joking about that, because that's one of the things.
Yeah.
And what I'm finding is, like, that doesn't help, but one thing I think that does help a little bit, like, it's helped a little, is really trying to watch the way I say things, especially to a man, especially someone that's kind of like, you know... is just saying it in a way of, hey, do you think before the end of the day you could get this for me? And don't get me wrong, like, you know, that doesn't always work. So I don't know fully what to tell you on that. But I do know that for the most part, I'll let you know when I figure out this solution, okay? But as of right now, one thing that has helped a little bit is watching how I say it.
Yep.
And not coming so aggressively or with resentment, because just as much as I'm like, oh my God, so is he, or maybe he didn't think about it, I don't know. But at the end of the day, I really have to ask myself, is it that big of a deal? I mean, because I'm thinking about it like it's disrespectful, and he's not. So I think that's the part that really gets me is, you know, I'm like, oh my God, that's so disrespectful. He knows I've asked him, but his mind is somewhere else when he does that. That's not what he's thinking about. Is that what you're thinking about?
No. Just a little clarity on me. I am an Aquarius. I am an Aquarian male. Sun sign, moon sign is Leo. I'm obviously nowhere near as knowledgeable about this stuff as Candice. So, sun sign Aquarian, moon sign Leo, and...
Rising is a Pisces.
Yeah. So, that might give you a little insight into the way my mind works a little. You're sitting here saying, rinse out a bowl, and I'm sitting here, I'm thinking about 100 different things at the same time. 50 steps ahead of where you might think I would actually be thinking.
Missed the bowl in the sink step.
I'm 10 steps ahead of that.
Well,
thinking. But
you don't want to miss the stuff.
The moral of this story is, obviously, you have to decide at some point when that action is a deal breaker. Is it going to be a deal breaker for you? And if it is, that's okay. If nobody can dictate who you have to be with, no one can say you have to settle. If it truly is a deal breaker for you to have to go behind somebody and rinse out a bowl every once in a while, that's fine. That's your deal breaker. That's what you're willing to accept, and nothing less.
So, why do men commonly look at when a woman talks to a man that they're nagging at them?
A lot of times that comes down to how they're approached. For this, I can only speak for me. It comes down to how you're approached. If you come at me yelling, you come at me aggressively, you come at me at any of that, I'm going to immediately put up a wall. Anything, I will hear your tone and not what you say. Simply put. And I'll take that for a little while until I fire something back at you. I can't speak for every other man out there. I can speak for me.
It seems like, though, a lot of times I find that when you're talking about something that a man doesn't want to talk about.
Or do.
Or what?
Or do.
That's when you're nagging. It's like you could talk about anything. You could come and be like, with the same tone and talk about something that's interesting to them and they'll talk about it. But then as soon as you talk about something they don't want to talk about or do, it's like you're nagging. It's like 1 minute you're nagging and 1 minute you're not. So I get the tone thing and all that, but it's about the subject too.
Yeah, I will admit that the subject plays in. If it's the 20th time you're nagging me about the bowl in the sink,
let's get on the bowl. I don't get on that much about the bowl in the sink. But
at some point, I'm going to be like, look, I don't care about the bowl in the sink. I'll throw it away if you keep talking about it.
Yeah, that's not really
what
I meant. But I mean, even like, let's get off of us.
Yeah, let's get off of us.
What I'm saying is like men, because I might have to like tie him up in a second and hog tie his butt.
It goes the same way for guys though. Guys will come off as...
I mean, a woman could be talking about like wanting to talk and have feelings, or even like cuddle, or let's go do this, or let's go do that, or something, and a guy will look at that as nagging.
With something like that, it's because he's not comfortable expressing that emotion or that emotional expression. That would be the reason that something like that would happen. That, or he just doesn't like you.
Yeah, or like doing that. Like it. And he might have a lot on his plate too, to where his mind is just open to anything outside of any of that too. I could see that. I could see him being so burdened.
I don't know. If somebody were to come to me and say that the other person and understand intimacy and sex are very different things. Sex does not have to be intimate at all. If somebody does not want to be intimate with you, I would first, I'd be looking to see, is there any kind of history of abuse in that person's past? That would be the first thing I'd look for. Something like that. If that doesn't if you don't find anything with that, I'd be looking at how their parents' relationship is. Previous relationships.
Especially for men, because after a while, like I had this thought the other day where I was like, it seems like women start out a little more shut down, and over time, they a lot of times open up. And so that makes it to where the men start out chasing and the women start out making the men chase. And then over time, through experience, I don't know if it's what the men learn or if it's through they're like, I just wanted to have fun. And these women brought all these emotions and all these hardships, and they made things difficult. So it's like they ended up like shutting down. I find a lot of guys end up shutting down over time and just doing the responsibility or the sex stuff and not wanting to do the intimacy or emotion stuff. Maybe it's because of all the burdens they keep over time, but they're like, that became more difficult to them. They were more open with the fun and everything in the beginning, but once they found out what emotions were really like, they're like, oh, because they didn't learn it from their parents probably on how to properly do it. But I just realized that the other day. I really looked back at it and I was like, wow, guys over time tend to seem to shut down, at least maybe until they get older, and women seem to flip.
I would have to talk to a couple in that scenario because there are a lot of things that can contribute to it.
I agree, yeah.
Number one, for the man, if it's the man shutting down, you have to find out, you have to ask, okay, what's going on at work? Is the man just so burdened by work, by not being fulfilled, by stress at work. He just has no will to perform. There's nothing left for him. All he can think is, I need to go home.
It's just one more thing to deal with.
Yeah,
that's the way it looks.
One more level of stress, one more, and it's really sad when it gets to this point. It's just one more job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then you also have to ask too, after that, if that pans out fine, you have to ask, okay, what's the relationship actually like? Has this relationship turned into something that's not conducive for sex? That is a valid question. Is this man beaten down by the relationship? Is the woman beaten down by the relationship? Is somebody just so unfulfilled by the relationship, they've literally shut their sexuality down? That is,
or their emotions, one or the other. It usually goes hand in hand after a while.
Guys can, I don't know. You can have sex without bringing emotions into it. It's nowhere near as fun. It's nowhere near as engaging.
Is it though? Because I find a lot of men would prefer to have sex without feelings. I mean, I get that's those like kind of fun.
It comes off that way.
Whatever, but it seems like that way a lot, especially as they become more burdened. They seem to try to do it that way.
That's a one last shot attempt at trying to revitalize themselves, honestly. That's when you'll start seeing guys basically just sleeping around with any woman that'll let them.
I think it's a way of expression. I think a lot of guys, to be honest, after a while, I think they become so bogged down by society and pressures and burdens and the way things are supposed to look that they try to uphold, a lot of them, like images and upholding the family and like the burdens and dealing with it. And it's like, do I want this? I'm not happy, but I've got my kids and I want to stay into this and blah, blah, blah. And then after a while, creatively, they're shutting down because they're shutting down in every way possible. So I think a lot of times if they still are going for sex without emotion, I really look at that as a way of, that is their release. That is their way of fun. That's their way of release. That's their way of finding creation. And it's just their way of feeling alive still.
I'm about to make a parallel that you might not have thought about.
That's okay. That's what we're here for. So,
because that sounds a whole lot about, it sounds a whole lot like a functional drunk, a functional alcoholic. They'll start out with that beer after work. Same thing. Excuse me. Sorry about that. They'll start out with that beer after work, and next thing you know, they're having a couple every night. Then that turns into they're getting drunk every night. It's not just a couple to catch a quick buzz. Then you have full-blown alcoholism. Same thing happens whenever you're unfulfilled with any action. Could be alcohol, sex, drugs, video games, books, whatever. It's anything that you start to become dependent on because you're not satisfied with how your life is going.
Yeah. And I think for a lot of people, whether it is addiction, sex, whatever, I mean, you can have a sex addiction, alcohol, drug addiction, or anything like that. It's literally a lot of times your way of expressing and creating yourself because you feel like whatever situation you're possibly stuck in and trying to maintain and uphold, you have absolutely no sense of individuality anymore or any way of expressing yourself. Like you've lost your identity.
Yep.
In a lot of ways, I feel like a lot of people have lost their identity. Another thing that I think plays something in this, which we're going to have to wrap this up and maybe hit on some of these topics at another time.
It's going to make a whole series of videos.
Yeah, we're going to keep going with this. And we're also going to, I'll get to that after, but is also about the 5 languages of love too. So that's another thing that makes me think of it. It's also looking at people show love in different ways. So I may show love by wanting to like show that I care, or talking, or, you know, being there, or touch, or whatever. Where some guys, for instance, their way of showing that they care is by providing for the household, by making sure the house is safe, bringing in money. Are you okay? Are you okay? Good. And then they go sit down,
Yeah.
and that in their mind, they've checked off all the boxes. That is their way of, no, I love my family. I dearly take care of my family. They're alive, they're fed, they're clothed, they have a roof over their head.
I work 40 to 60 hours a week to try to make sure that you have food, roof, shelter, education, everything.
Fixing your car.
Of course I love my family. And that honestly is that's how guys are raised, to see that they're doing it right. And that's one of the places you mothers out there have an opportunity to impact that.
So do the fathers, though.
Oh, absolutely.
Because a lot of fathers have a hard time relating, like, say, with their sons. They have a hard time relating with their sons in an emotional way. They teach them just the responsibility aspect to get ready for life. But because their father didn't show them how to relate with males, they don't relate with the males except for hard love, pushing them to get ready for life, but not showing that it's okay and manly for a man to show their emotional side too. So this is why it's carried down through generations and patterns. And then usually the mom does, but then she tries to overcompensate for the dad, and she'll go like over loving. So then she either like creates a narcissist, or they become like, with females and want to take care of themselves, to where they either run to females who take care of them, or they run from females who try to show they love. Like, they might actually look at a female who's trying to nurture them as annoying, because they're like, no, I could do this himself, because their mom tried to overcompensate because they felt bad their dad didn't show enough love, so then they try to overlove them, if that makes sense. You can't overlove somebody, but you get what I'm saying. Boundaries.
It's the terminology she's looking for is called emotional incestuous relationship. Generally, that's where the son, is elevated to almost the man of the household status, because either the father is not present, or the father has been alienated because he has to work 40 to 60 hours a week, and he's not present. He's obligated to maintain the household, and he doesn't get to spend any time with his family. That is a huge tragedy. And
then he kind of gets a lot of the bad rap for that too, yes. And then feels bad for it, because on one hand he's providing, but on the other hand they're like, you're never here.
Yeah, I can speak to that. I mean, that was my childhood. My father worked 80 hours a week, and my mother, at the time, she worked 60. So I came pretty close to raising myself. Yes, they provided for me. Yes, they gave me everything I needed to have a happy, safe childhood. The only thing I wish I had more of was them.
Yeah. And I mean, there's other ways too. Like, I mean, that's obviously not all of them. I can't remember what they all are, but some are gifts and stuff like that. So my main reason of saying that is, for one, it's a good book. You should read it. For two, you really got to look at how people show love, and if they do, and what their perspective is, because either you're not looking at it like they love you, because you're not looking at how they show love. You're in your own wounds, your own perception, and you're not trying to understand it from somebody else's point of view. Or if it's that important to you and you're not going to be happy no matter how much of their perspective you understand, then you need to reevaluate that relationship, instead of trying to kind of bulldog or bulldoze somebody into loving the way you do.
You can't bully somebody into loving you the way you want to be loved. That you either have to learn to recognize how they show you they love you,
and to learn to do that for yourself too, because at the end of the day, that's your responsibility first, is to do that for yourself.
Yep, absolutely.
So,
or you need to decide that's not the way you want to be loved, and find somebody that is going to do it. so that way you can release you both.
And don't villainize for them if they can't. Like, people are different. They're not Build-A-Bears, you know, like, and then you give that person the opportunity to decide if they want to expand and grow, or if not, they're just who they are, and they find somebody else who's good with somebody who recognizes that and appreciates that. And not that you didn't appreciate that, but in a way, it is appreciating it, but it's not appreciating it when somebody does come home and they have been working all day, and you're like, yeah, I'm glad I got a roof over my head, but you've been sitting there all lonely, and then you start to hound them for it. Or they weren't there able to do stuff, and they're trying to do the best they can. I mean, I get it. Everybody's got to learn balance, but either understand things from their perspective, or try to talk in a way of we or I instead of pointing fingers at them, or just try to do it yourself. If you're that lonely too, are you just sitting there waiting on them while they're out like growing and doing things? Like, are you can't expect somebody to not do their stuff too, because you can't occupy your own time and show yourself love and entertainment. Now, again, there is balance. So if you're like, no, I do that, but they are really never there, then again, you need to share your feelings and your needs and see what you can compromise. And if not, you reevaluate the situation. But nagging and staying in something that's draining your energy is not going to work. And it's also not fair to that person who they're already having all this stuff on their back, trying to do the best they can. And yes, they may not see things from your perspective and may see it differently, but you have to think about it. When somebody's doing that, like say this is your scenario we're describing, when you come to them with something else because they're already burdened, their life has already been sucked out of them, they already feel like they have no life just because they're trying to maintain a household and they're doing the best they can, you're bringing one more burden to them. And that sucks. That's a horrible perspective to have for them. That means they're really weighed down, and hopefully they learn to look at their stuff a little bit different in the future.
There's only so many burdens somebody's going to take before they decide for themselves.
That energy's going to burst somewhere.
That they're just going to shake it off.
Yeah. They'll either have a nervous breakdown, they'll let you go, or they'll find some type of addiction to release their energy into something.
Little quote from Will Smith that I heard not too long ago that I really liked. Well, it's not an exact quote because I don't remember it. We walk this path together for as long as we can. I love and appreciate Candice. We walk this path together for as long as we can. And I'll celebrate that. If something were to come up, though, where we couldn't, then I'll celebrate the time we had together.
Yeah, because I think we both realize in life, like, you never know what's going to happen. Yep. You know what I mean? Whether he dies, whether I die, or whether...
It turns out we're just not walking the same path anymore.
Whether my path leads me somewhere else, because we are, spirits having a human journey.
Yep. And
we have different lessons and different whatever. So, we don't try to we don't expect that, but we're aware that it can happen. And...
Something I did want to add to that scenario, though, that you were talking about. I know I got off topic with the quote. Something I wanted to add to that scenario, though, men and women, both. If you are having that situation where one person is overburdened with work or whatever, and you're just hanging out waiting on them to come home, might it be a good idea for you to take some of that burden from them? Maybe if a man or woman is working 40, 60, 80 hours a week, maybe you could get a part-time job.
That's a little circumstantial too, though, because...
It is. That only works in that circumstance.
No, I'm saying, like, some guys were also raised with the mentality that, you're not doing your job as a man if the woman has to work. Yeah. Or they have control and trust issues, and they want their woman to be at home and not somewhere else. Or
that's for them to work out.
So there is a little bit of circumstantial stuff to that. It's not everybody who's sitting there waiting or whatever is...
That, unfortunately, is for them to work out.
I get it.
Understand this. Like, let's say Candice is working a full-time job. She's working 40 hours a week, plus trying to maintain her YouTube channel, plus trying to do all of her responsibilities at the house. let's say that's the case. And let's say I just sit around watching TV all day. Is it valid for me to say, you never make time for me? Is that a valid argument for me to say, you never make time for me? Even if that's what you want, if you want all the burden of financial responsibility on you, if I just sit there and say, whatever, if I sit there in that victim mentality that you're not making time for me and I'm not doing anything to try to change that, then I'm getting what I asked for. That's the easiest way to put it. I'm getting what I asked for. If I don't try to make a change, if I don't try to change me, I don't need to change you. I need to change me so that I can relieve some of that burden on you. Now, if you can't handle some of that burden coming off of you, that's a different conversation. That's an entirely different conversation. That's where I come to you and I say, look, where we're at is not where I'm going to be.
On the other token, too, some people, just play devil's advocate, some people kind of lie to themselves. I don't think a lot of times they realize they're doing it until something makes them realize it, but that they actually don't have time, that they are so burdened, and they actually do. It's just that they're so feeling stuck or lack of expression that sometimes those things they're doing are their way to express themselves. That's where you become a workaholic.
Yeah.
Is where you've become so burdened and so bogged down that your only way to express yourself and feel any sense of freedom or happiness is by doing those things. And you do them so much to feel like you're doing something and you're doing it right, but they're not appreciating it and you're not home enough. And a lot of times you actually can be home more often. It's just now that person really has to look at themselves and see what their image and reality of life looks like. And a lot of times they're actually running from it, because if they were home more often, they would have to realize things about their beliefs or realities or about something about themselves they don't want to see. And so that actually gives them an excuse or a victim mentality to not have to see it by doing all those things so much that they can't get away from.
Yep. I will admit to doing that kind of thing in the past. I wasn't in a relationship at the time. My great-grandmother had just passed, and I was working at a local restaurant. I think this was one of my first jobs. I think it was my first job I had. I'm not going to name the restaurant. She had just passed, and to avoid the grief, I worked myself to a point where I couldn't even think. And
which goes a lot with the male thing too.
I don't think I'm unique in that kind of endeavor. So if you do have a man in your life that is just over,
or male energy,
whatever.
Yeah.
Male or female, whatever.
Masculine
energy. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
If you have a masculine energy in your life and they're just overworking themselves for no reason, maybe you take a look to see if there's any kind of underlying thing that's not just an obvious reason.
That you think they actually have no emotions because they're not expressing it. They actually do, though. They're just suppressing it and trying to work it out. And in that way, they release the energy. They just don't heal the underlying wound.
Yeah.
So it keeps going. It festers.
Yeah, it took a long time for me to come to terms with that scenario, with my great-grandmother passing. I really missed her, and I still do. But it is what it is. Something like that, generally, it's because somebody doesn't want to actually work through something. It's because they just want to, like I did,
run from it,
bury their head in the sand. All right, we're coming up on an hour, and we were looking to do this at
half an hour,
20 minutes.
Well, the max was going to be a half an hour. We're going to cut out at 25. So, what I wanted to say was absolutely like, share, comment, subscribe on this video. Also, if you liked or this helped, you know, feel free to donate or tip or whatever. My PayPal is in the description box below, because we're also saving up to do like plant spirit medicine, healing and training. And I'm going to do a video on that too, so you'll be able to see that soon, where I talk more about it and everything. But mostly like, share, comment, subscribe. But if you can, like, leave a comment on what you guys think, if this helped or whatever.
If you'd like us to talk about it.
Yeah, if you have additional questions or topics, we are eventually going to do this live where we can see your guys' questions, or we might even start to do it, maybe even if it really goes to where, like, we take a call or so many calls within that time or something.
Figure out how to do it.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. But, like, I'm on board. Are you kidding? Like, no, we're both. But, so, you know, to let us know, because to some degree we're going to bring our thoughts, but to some degree we want this also to be able to help you and allow things to come to guide us where to go with this, where you could see the masculine, the feminine, and the masculine perspective, and all of that. So we're going to build off this, but let us know what you guys think. I hope you really like this. It probably will get even more and more fluid and lighthearted as we go. This is our first time of figuring things out and what we're doing with it and how we're going to go and everything. So it's only going to evolve from here. So thank you very much. And I love you guys. Like, share, comment, subscribe, please.
Before we get off,
hit the bell.
I do want to talk a little bit about possible future services. One of the things I know we're wanting to do is possibly get into coaching, team coaching, or singular coaching. You pick her, me, whatever, both of us.
A lot of times we like to do it together, but we are aware that sometimes, like, there may be one person who doesn't, like, say if a guy doesn't want, you know, they want to talk male to male.
Yeah,
or if, like, a female feels funny around men or something, we get that.
Yeah.
So.
Or if you just straight up want a female perspective or a straight up male perspective, obviously. Something else too, I did want to go over real quick my own services that I offer. I do Reiki, I do my own little tarot thing. I've gone to a couple events with Candice, and I've really enjoyed it. I really enjoy doing it. I like the way my intuition brings out messages through the tarot cards for people.
Yeah, Mike's really good. I mean, and I'm more like, I could see other things, but I more dive. And Mike can dive too, but he also more sees, see up above, or
I can see what's going on around you spiritually a little bit too.
Even entities or things that have passed. I mean, he's pretty good about seeing certain things.
Something else too, we do have an event coming up. I think it's this Saturday, the Spiritual Barbershop.
I was going to do a video.
Oh, you are?
Just on that, talking about that, yeah.
So.
But, I mean, we can mention it too, but if you're in the Jacksonville, Florida area, this weekend coming up, I think on the 3rd or 4th. And then
3rd or 4th of November. So if you want to meet Candice, you want to meet me, you want to meet us.
I will do a video also that's going to explain more of this about it, just so you know.
Come give us a shout.
Yeah. Are we done? Is that it?
I think that's it.
Yeah. All right. I love you guys. I hope this really helps you. And not everything will be as much about coaching or whatever. Sometimes we'll literally just go back and forth on the perspective of, you know, what I think from a woman or what he thinks from a male or something like that. So it's going to change. Sometimes it'll be more educational. Sometimes it might just be, like, fun and just kind of like...
Just us talking. Just our banter.
Yeah, heads up. Just so you know, as we become more comfortable with this, you'll probably see more about this. We banter a lot. You know, we kind of like...
Just in case nobody knows what the word banter means. Banter is your normal way of conversing with people. Candice and I have a very loose banter. We like to chide at each other a little bit when we banter, when we talk.
Each other.
Yeah, and
Josh.
It's just fun. We have had people stop. I'll say something, she'll say something, and somebody will be like, "Oh no!" And we're like, "Yeah, that's just how we talk. This is fun. This is how we mess with each other."
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
So I mean, what was the example earlier? Don't want to say that. Like,
Oh, like she'll say something and I'll be like, "You're dumb."
Yeah.
Or I'll say something and she'll be like, "Oh, you're dumb," or something like that. That's the most mild version
or
of
like,
our banter.
Or like, let's be real. Sometimes I'll tell him that he likes to like suck on a tube steak or something, and he'll tell me I like to suck on a donut.
Yeah.
Or something like I don't know.
You misrepresented to me.
Yeah.
You all you like eating is or sucking on is a damn donut or something.
All I'm saying is, like, this might go in places that's like, oh my God. Because one thing I really do want to bring to this channel is a level of spirituality, but also realness, and showing you that you can still be spiritual and be real and down to earth at the same time. And, you know, even sexuality, like a big thing I want to bring to it is being able to mix together, you know, the spirituality of it with, you know, sexuality, or love with sexuality. Or like, I'm going to do more on this, but I find people are very disintegrated with being able to feel like a good person, but also at the same time being able to truly express their sexual side and not feel like they're wrong, bad, or dirty doing it. And I know sometimes dirty can be excited. I get that, or exciting, but you get what I'm saying, like to where you can actually be integrated in that and not have to keep yourself separated, because I feel like that's where our evolution is going. So anyways, just don't be offended by our stuff. This is realness coming out.
Yep. Also, the word she meant to use was not disintegrated. That has a completely different...
I make up words sometimes. I don't know. So.
Other than...
unintegrated?
Yes. Unintegrated or whatever. Not integrated.
People on my channel know this by now.
Yeah, I'm sure they...
I make up words quite often. And it's... You know what I mean, though.
We call it
context clues.
Candice speak.
Anyways, guys, I love you. I hope this helped you. And if you have any questions or anything, let us know. And if we get like a popular thing or if something's just a really good question, then we'll include this. As of right now, I think we might do this weekly or 2 times a week, one or the other, to where it'll come up. But it depends on how much it's going and how often we do it. I love doing it, so I'm willing to do it more often, but we'll see. As of right now, we'll do it once or twice a week and just take random things in. So anyways, just let us know what you guys think. I love you guys. Glad you guys got to meet Mike. Whenever you guys hear me talk about him, this is him. So
the rare coastal Sasquatch.
You're dumb. But I love you guys, and I'll be seeing you soon. Bye.
Bye.